Well, I just got a pair of 12A6s, a matched pair, vintage RCA. Here they are. These just came in the mail. After I realized that a VT, I think it was VT 124, was a 12A6. I'm not that great with numbers, but anyway, the whole time I was waiting for the tube, I actually had them under the VT 124 numbers. This command radio power supply is still becoming a lot of fun for me. The problem right now is these two controls. They're this one here is 15K at 25 watts and 25K at 50 watts. Now I have this one on order. I found it on eBay, eDumpster. It was a person, a regular person had a couple in the box, original, and they're basically rheostats. They're not pots, and they get hot, and they're become very rare. At one time, you could get them for $4.95 surplus. They were dying to get rid of them. Now they're becoming more rare, and the people that own them or have them in a warehouse, they want big money for them. Now a brand new one you still can buy. The one control is $160, and the other one is $160, $45 to $90, depending on where you buy it. Brand spanking new. Okay, so one of them I got going. The other one, I put in an offer to the guy, and he didn't get back to me. And I'm like, geez, this happens a lot. And then I realized, I start going back through it, and I realized it's the guy that sold me the transformer with the lead cut. Another problem I had, it's actually a surplus company that has a website, and they put make an offer, and I make a small offer, difference in price, just to help me with the shipping. They don't get back to you. Okay, that make an offer is bullshit. Okay, where the regular guy, I took $5 off and I made him an offer, and he came right back and he accepted the offer. Okay, so you got to watch on eBay or ePay or eDumpster, whatever you want to call it. There are regular people there that are selling stuff out of their home, and you can get a pretty good deal if you figure them out. And the guy that didn't accept my offer, I went and read his review, and right away it says a picture didn't match the product I got. The product I got is all scratched. But then I started thinking, let me check on this guy. I went looking, and I've bought stuff through him. And what he does is he takes a stock picture, or he gets a picture from someone else's website, and he sticks it up there. And that's what he's selling you. But he's selling you the picture from someone else and sending you the item. And in some cases, on his review, he sent the wrong item. And I'm like, I don't need that. So I have to go dig that other control up from somewhere else. And the controls, like I said, they're not variacs. they're rheostats. Okay, and you probably, if you had a Lionel train set, that lever you move back and forth, that's a rheostat. If you open it up and look at it, it's got turns of nichrome wire, and as you move the lever over it, the resistance goes up or down. And those nichrome wires, that can handle a lot of current. Where a pot is basically a resistive track on a piece of Bakelite, or phenolic, they used to call it, brown phenolic. And if that gets too hot, it just burns, and you smell that smoke. Okay, where a rheostat, you'll get a little bit of smell. You might feel heat in the air, and then when you look at it, it'll be cherry red, and it might just open up on you. So I want good ones. I only have to make quick adjustments. There's two adjustments. You adjust the voltage for the screen of the transmitter, and the other one, when you're under full load, you adjust the glowing of the regulator tubes. Okay, I get this basically, in my mind, figured out what I want to do. The thing I'm noticing though, there's voltage that goes to the oscillator, there's voltage that goes to the screens, and there's voltage that go to the plates. I got a feeling that I have to cut a wire somewhere in the transmitter. I don't remember being a separate voltage for the oscillator. All right, well, it's no big deal, but like I said, I like to keep everything original. But I did get the two tubes. I have the two regulator tubes coming, and I do have those in another radio. In two other radios, I have those tubes. But I don't like to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know what I mean? I don't like to take something out of a unit. And like I always tell you, when I die, someone's going to go through this stuff. And if you start pulling tubes out of radios and then they see it's empty, they're going to figure that the thing doesn't work and it's going to end up in the dumpster or in the landfill. So I have a certain way of doing it. But it's funny, when I saw this, in RCA we used to, you could get a matched pair of tubes. And how they would do it is the girl would be sent like 10 tubes. And she put it in a socket, and it was a star machine. And that was the name of it. It was a computer, but it was a relay computer. And you plug the tube in, and you flick a switch, and you hear relays going clack, 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 clack. And what it would do is it would measure it would put a certain voltage on the tube and measure a number. And then that would go and put a star on a teletype. And then it would form a graph. And at each voltage, it would give you the gain at that voltage. And then you'd run all 10 tubes, and you mark them. And then you'd go through them, and you find two that match the most. The two that are identical, the same amount of gain, same curve for the same voltages. And that would be a match set. And that's what these are, okay? And what you'd use that in is like a balanced amplifier. Way back in the old days, the olden days, we should call it. Like an XY recorder and things like that, where you want it balanced to start with. Also, a VTVM, some of those way back used a balanced amplifier in those, in the voltage section. And then later on they figured out how to do stuff with just one tube. But the funny thing is, any older set, they used to call them a Ballantine, not the beer. The Ballantine was a meter, and it was real complicated inside. And what it was a test meter for voltage, and had a single scale sometime on it. And you'd let it warm up, and it was very accurate, okay? But the thing is, a Ballantine meter was very high impedance. It didn't load the circuit down. So in other words, when you put it across a battery or whatever, you were reading the voltage of the battery without any load at all. Where a modern voltmeter, like the Simpsons, there's so many thousand ohms per volt. So technically, when you put the meter across it, it uses the voltage from the battery that you're measuring in order to read the voltage. Okay, it's actually reading the voltage from the battery and using it to run the meter. So you do see a little bit of loading from the meter. Now, as you go up in higher voltages, you don't want to have your meter loading down high voltage. And that's when a really good meter, it's like 10,000 ohms per volt, or let's say 1,000 ohms per volt. So 10,000 volts, when you're measuring, it's got a lot of resistance. So it's not going to load the circuit down. A cheap meter would be like 100 ohms per volt. And then you go inside of a high voltage section of a TV set, and you're not going to get correct readings because it's loading the circuit down. All right, and that's why a VTVM, a vacuum tube voltmeter, was used, like a Volt-Ohmist, RCA. Those are going for big money now. Later on, they had Simpson had a FET one, and that was a high impedance meter. And you only need that when you don't want to load the circuit down. I worked in this one place, and the engineer there, he had a VTVM, a TVM, a transistor voltmeter, and it used a FET, and the thing never zeroed out right or left side. And I explained to him, he put it together as a kid. I said, you got to calibrate that meter. But he would throw that up to anyone that coming into the company to see how we worked. He would show them that meter. We have a TVM here, and that was a big thing when they first came out. And that was it was a selling point to get customers to have us assemble their stuff. But the meter was not put together correctly. It was not calibrated. But it's just funny stuff. But seeing this, I remember, when you had calibrated VTMs in the place, you could be working on your job, and this guy would wheel in with his cart, and he'd take the thing right out of your hand to go calibrate it. He was real serious. He had a real short haircut. He just came out of the military, and I don't know what happened to him in the military, but it was very hard to get him to accept the fact that you need to take 2 more readings before you give him the meter. And I got to know the guy pretty good, but he would still be really annoying. And you'd come in for work in the morning, and the boss I had a narcissistic boss and a showman, and he'd start screaming, "I'm going to call." He'd call on a phone. He'd phone down the back. I would go to do a job that he wanted it right away because he promised somebody we would do it right away. But the test bed, in order to test it when I was finished with it, was gone for calibration. And he'd go off into a tizzy, and that same guy with the short haircut and all that. And then they play power play. The calibration lab would play power play with my boss. And my boss would get on me, and I said, "Look, it's repaired already. I just need this test bed for final calibration." But he start lashing out at anybody. I don't know if you ever work with someone that's a narcissistic personality, but they can be quite annoying. They're on show all the time. He used to march with these two other cronies. He had two other guys that worked in our place. They didn't do any work. They just marched on either side of him when he marched through the building. And we had these big aircraft doors in McGraw-Edison. They used to go from the floor to the ceiling, and it was for aircraft stuff. And when they built the new building, they didn't have any of the contracts. So the doors were stupid. He'd plow through that door, and if you were on the other side of that door, you'd get hurt really bad. Like the women in the place, they were bruisers, and they would march around, and they used to let the women in McGraw-Edison go home 15 minutes early, because several times they run into the time clock, they knocked someone over and broke their arm or their legs or whatever. So the women would punch out of McGraw-Edison 15 minutes earlier than us. Also, the debacle down in the parking lot. I won't go into those stories. Just picture a woman having a panic attack in her car, going back and forth into two other cars. And then when it goes to personnel, they wouldn't do nothing about it. And the one guy whose car got damaged, he quit on us. He messed up a lot of the equipment before he left, and then he cut all four of her tires. Yeah, and then she thought I had something to do with it. It was amazing stuff that I've gone through. But yeah, I think about when you calibrate, something has to be calibrated. It has to have match pairs, and they notice it when they go to calibrate the piece of equipment. If that balance pot, there was a balance pot between the two tubes, and if they had to move that too much, they knew they needed another set of balance tubes. Selected balance. No, there's another name. I had the name when I started. Isn't it? It sucks getting older, but yeah, a pair, a calibrated pair. Now I think there's actually another word for it, but it is what it is. I think that's it. I'm still working on it. All right, that's it. Match pair. That's it. Yeah.